we're going to do section 5, 6, the quadratic formula and the discriminant. So we're going to learn how to use the quadratic formula to solve any quadratic equation. So let's start with the formula. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Any quadratic equation can be written this way generally. A, b, c are real numbers. The quadratic formula is, you're going to have to memorize this, x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And commit that to memory. You're going to have to know that. You've got a quiz coming up, I think on Tuesday, so you'll have to have that memorized in order to use it. What you do is go back up here and look for a, b, and c, and you put them in each of these places. The most common place for a math mistake is right here under the radical. That's actually, all this is considered the discriminant. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So let's start with this problem. So what I recommend you do is come under the problem and put A's here, B's here, C's here, but also notice it has to be set equal to 0. Don't start putting the values in the quadratic formula until it is completely set equal to 0. And this one is, so we're ready to go. So let's copy it down. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We're going to put everything in. And to me, that's worth half credit on a quiz or test question, so make sure you show this work. The b is actually 12. So we're going to make it negative 12. So b is 12 squared. 4, and then a is 1, and c is negative 9. And then underneath is 2 times 1, because the a is 1. So show this. Some of you can do a lot of this in the calculator and just come up with the final answer. I'm probably just going to go ahead and show you what ends up being under the discriminant. So this is 144, and then that's plus 36. But I want you to understand, you can actually type every bit of that in as long as you do it correctly. Make sure you put the parentheses and all that. Hit enter, and it's going to tell you this answer. So we need to do 144 plus 36, and it is 180 all over 2. When we look at the square root of 180, you do need to think about perfect squares. So always start with the smallest one, which is 4, 9, and 16, and start checking to see if any of those will go into 180. So if I try 9, I know it does go in to 180, and it's 20 times 9 is 180, but I think we can find another one that's a little bit bigger. I'm thinking, I don't think 25 is going to work, but 36 I think works. 36 times 5. So here's what you got to do. You come over here and you're going to split this up. Put the perfect square in the front because it's coming out. Put times 5. And so this right here, when it comes out, it's going to come out a 6 in the front on the square root of 5. All over 2. And I got to explain one thing before we move on. We might think you're finished, but this number, and this number are all divisible by 2, so you have to reduce that. So if I reduce it, I'm going to come over here and write my final answer. X equals, about everybody by 2, about everybody by 2. So that'll be negative 6 plus or minus 3 on the square root of 5. It's all over 1. If you want to write that, you don't have to. But this is actually your 2 answers. And let me mention something to you. You could go in and actually do this part on the calculator and get the decimal answer. And then you could go do this on the calculator and get another decimal answer. And knowing these 2 numbers, remember you could go back and graph that and make sure it's crossing at those 2 decimal values. So that's a way to check it. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, the next one is not ready to begin because it's not set equal to 0. So you need to add 10. to both sides. And now it is ready. We got A, B, and C. So here we go. Write that formula down. The more times you write it, and you'll have it memorized. So B is -6, so that actually means it turns into a +6. And here's a commonplace mistake. If you don't put parentheses around this -6, you're going to get the wrong answer underneath here. So make sure you take care of that. A is 1, C is 10. And 2 times 1. We'll see what we get on this one. 36 minus 40 all over 2. So we're going to get 6 plus or minus, and this will be a -4 all over 2. You notice we've got a negative under the radical, so that means we have an I, and the square root of 4 is 2. So it's 2I all over 2. Again, look at these 3 numbers. We can divide each of those by 2. So it is 3 plus or minus I. And the only way to check this one really is to just graph it and notice that it's not crossing the x-axis. Notice it comes in pairs. Imaginary numbers come in pairs. There are 2 days of homework for this section. The first is just actually working the whole problem out using the quadratic formula. The next day, I start giving you some problems that ask about the discriminant. Now, this is the part that's under the radical, b squared minus 4ac. Sometimes they just want to know what will the solutions be, like describe them. They don't actually ask for the actual solutions. So this is what they're wanting to know. If this is a positive number, and they represent it by greater than 0, and it's a perfect square, then you get 2 rational solutions. Those are usually, 2 integers or 2 good-looking fractions, something like that. If you get a non-perfect square under the radical, then you're going to get 2 irrational. That means they're decimals that go on forever. They're not repeating or anything. And then like that last one, we got a -4 under the radical, and so that meant we had 2 complex solutions. And we did. We had 3 plus or minus I think. And on this one, this is very unique. If you end up with a 0 under the radical, if the discriminant turns into 0, you only have 1 answer, which is pretty neat. And you know what that means? That means that the parabola is just sitting right there on the x-axis, at one spot. That's what that means. Okay, so let's go to a couple of these. So they just want to know what type of solution, so you actually don't have to work it out completely. Now, there might be some homework that says, tell us what the discriminant says and then go solve it. So you may have to fill out the whole rest of the problem. So remember, this is ready, A, B, C. And all we're looking at is just this portion of the quadratic formula. So -6 squared, that's 4, 1, and that was 10. So I think this is the last problem we just did. Look at it. It's turned into a -4, which means 2 complex solutions. All right. This one, he's ready to go too. We got an A, B, and C. So we're just looking at b squared minus 4ac. So we got -4 squared, 1, and 9. So that's 16 minus 36. So that'll be -20. So that's also 2 complex solutions. So when they want to know what the discriminant value is for these, these 2 are your answer. And then this is what do baby parabolas drink? Quadratic formula.